Welcome, everyone. Good morning. We'll give it a couple minutes till everyone joins. Good morning.
Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos. Vamos a esperar un par de minutos más para que puedan acompañarnos más personas. Buenos días.
Welcome, everyone.
Bienvenidos.
All right. Good morning. Probably another minute, and we're going to start at 10:02.
Buenos días nuevamente. Vamos a darnos otro minuto, por favor. Comenzaremos a las 10:02.
Good morning. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to let everyone know that we are offering Spanish interpretation during our meeting today, as you've heard. And please note that American Sign Language is not available for this meeting. However, Zoom offers captions, but you have to enable that on your end. To turn on captions, you can click the more or three-dot button, depending on your device, and make a caption selection. Now I will read the instruction for joining the Spanish interpretation channel. And then our Spanish interpreter, Ruth, will read them in Spanish. Simultaneous interpretation is being provided. English speakers may need to select English as their language. To access that from your computer, click the globe icon located at the bottom of the screen. It could be under More again, and then choose English. Or from smartphone, you can click that three-dot above where it says More again on the bottom right side of the screen and choose language interpretation. Choose English and press Done on the top right side of the screen.
Buenos días nuevamente. Como ustedes saben, estamos ofreciendo traducción simultánea al español. No vamos a tener el lenguaje de señas, pero pueden ustedes acceder a los subtítulos. Eso lo tienen que hacer ustedes activándolo a través de los puntos suspensivos. Y ahora voy a leer las instrucciones. Si alguien está entrando a Zoom por su computadora, pueden hacer clic en el globo terráqueo que está en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Seleccionan su idioma, el español, y apaguen el audio original para solo escuchar una voz y no escuchar ambas cosas a la vez. Si están utilizando Zoom usando un teléfono inteligente, por favor hagan clic en los puntos suspensivos, que son los tres puntitos encima de la palabra More o más, que está en la parte inferior de la pantalla del lado derecho. Seleccionan Interpretation o interpretación, seleccionan el idioma español y hacen clic en Done o finalizar, que está arriba y del lado derecho de la pantalla. Gracias.
Grazie, Ruth. We can go to next slide, please. We can go to next slide, please.
Sorry, one moment. I'm having technical difficulties.
That's okay. I can start talking. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ava Yakubi Rod, and I will lead today's discussion, but I want to thank the great CMO Program Administrator team, as well as my colleague here at CARB joining me to help make sure everything runs smoothly this morning. Um, Thank you, Robert. I see the next slide. Today's meeting is considered an implementation work group, which means this meeting is kind of outside of our annual funding plan process and focuses on discussion around changes and updates for implementing a current program. To provide a brief background and more context for those who may be less familiar with CARB's processes, we usually kick off the funding plan development process in June every year with a formal workshop after legislators passes the annual state budget. And then over the course of a few months, we collaborate with stakeholders and communities with holding several work groups to discuss ideas in order to develop the draft funding plan. Usually in late August or early September, CARB staff consider all the feedback to finalize the proposed funding plan for public comment period and eventually present in CARB's board hearing in November for their consideration and approval, which this happens for the last funding plan just in November, and CARB board approved the latest funding plan. After they approve the plan, then staff begin to implement the changes to projects or programs that the board approved. This process includes holding implementation work groups to obtain feedback from public and stakeholders. Although there were no particular policy changes for the Clean Mobility Options Program in this year's funding plan, and there is no new funding, we wanted to provide a update on the status of clean mobility options projects that are happening in the state, and more importantly, discuss a proposed change in our criteria. A quick details, just a few details before we get started. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and this slide presentation, are posted on CARB's Low Carbon Transportation Incentives webpage. My colleague John is going to share that link with you in the chat shortly. In about 2 weeks, we will post the recording of today's meeting on the same page as well. If there are any Zoom disruption for any reason, including malicious intent, we will immediately end this meeting and send out a notice to reschedule. Also, we cannot allow anonymous participants for security reason. Please make sure your name is clear on the Zoom platform. All right, now let's get into today's agenda. Next slide, please. Today's topics include background and program overview, some updates on the current status of CMO voucher projects, and proposed change to Mobility Project Voucher criteria. And we'll end with wrap up and some next steps. There are opportunities built into today's presentation for your live feedback and questions. My colleague Sean will help us during Q&A sessions. You can also email us your question or comments if you don't like to talk live at Clean Transportation Incentives at arb.ca.gov. This email also will be shared in the chat, and we will try to answer any questions or comments that came to this inbox during today's meeting. Please note all times are approximate. This meeting is scheduled for an hour, but it is likely that we'll cover all context sooner. And if there are no questions or feedback, we will conclude early. Next slide, please. As most of you may know, the statewide Clean Mobility Option Program, or CMO, is administered by a wonderful group of dedicated and knowledgeable people who are working really hard to make sure that the program operates consistently with its intended goals and to support each project to ensure they are on track to implement successfully and achieve their promises to the communities. I would like to ask a team, I think I can't see who is on the camera, but it would be great if the whole team who are here, if possible, can see who are behind these logos. So if you are on the camera, I really appreciate that. Our administrator team consists of CARB's grantee CalStart and their partner Shared Use Mobility Center, Emergent Labs as an equity consultant, and HeartQuest Strategies as communication and marketing consultant. Thank you all so much to being on a camera for this slide. Since 2019, this team has provided support and technical assistance for all applicants from the time of application windows to execute voucher agreements and finally project implementation, which involves working with each program team from kickoff to launch their services and full operation, developing tools, resources, training based on their project needs within their geographic and operational context to implement successful project. This team is also providing administrative support, offering insights on budgeting and invoicing and helping each team navigate data reporting and evaluation related requirements for this grant. Thank you all. Next slide. Okay, as mentioned earlier, the purpose of today's work group is to provide a quick update on current CMO projects and discuss a proposed change to the Mobility Project Voucher Agreement funding term and get your feedback on this proposal. I just want to note that again, there is no additional funding available at this point for the CMO program. Next slide, please. Now, for some background, this visual displays our clean mobility investments, which are formally now referred to as sustainable community-based transportation equity projects. These include CMO, STEP, clean mobility in schools, and planning. But I want to also add that clean mobility investments in CARB is one of our two main categories of low carbon transportation investments in light duty platform. This is not on this slide, but I just want to note that the other category, which is not covered in this presentation, includes vehicle purchasing incentives for individual consumers. These are programs such as Clean Cars for All, the statewide Driving Clean Assistant Program, California E-Bike Incentive Project, Access Clean California, Zero Emission Assurance Project, ZAP, and California Integrated Travel Project, or CAL-ITP. Now going back to clean mobility investment projects, which these are focused on community investments, not individual incentives. First and foremost, Statewide Clean Mobility Options, or CMO. This is the program that probably most of you here are familiar with. Is providing funds for small-scale shared mobility projects and community transportation needs assessment. STEP, or Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, include multi-phased clean transportation and supporting projects to address community transportation needs and reduce vehicle miles traveled. Clean mobility in the schools entails clean transportation and education projects at K-12 public schools. Also noted on the right, regional clean mobility projects, which were the first early pilots that provided shared mobility services, including projects like Blue LA in our community car sharing in Sacramento. We have 4 regional mobility projects that are actively being implemented, with 3 projects closed out. And planning and capacity building, or planning just for short, are community-led planning and capacity building projects and dedicated localized technical assistance and outreach. The Community Transportation Needs Assessment, or CTNA, previously funded through CMO, are now being funded under this new program. For today, the remainder of this presentation is focused on CMO, obviously, but in case you are interested in more details for any of these projects, we will share a link in the chat for you so you can check it out and see all of our sustainable transportation efforts. Next slide, please. Now I'll go over some of the main objectives of CMO and a quick overview of the program. CMO's funding is for projects located in California's historically underserved communities, including tribes. These funding are for both Mobility Project Vouchers and Community Transportation Needs Assessment Vouchers. Although, as I mentioned before, Transportation Needs Assessment will continue to be funded through the statewide planning program. Our goals for mobility projects are to develop and launch affordable zero-emission services that fill the gap within the current community's transportation system in order to increase residents' access to key destinations. Some of these service models are electric car share or van pools, active transportation projects like bike share, innovative transit services, which are on-demand electric shuttles, as well as fixed route transit services, like shuttles or buses that operate on a set schedule and predetermined route. CMO intends to engage residents throughout the process from the very beginning. We believe engaging the people who are meant to be served in a meaningful way is a key to creating community-led solutions to transportation issues. Next slide. We have allocated a total of $91.4 million in this program since 2018-19, including $8 million from the California Energy Commission, our state agency's partner in this program. CMO has had 2 application windows so far. The first application window opened in June of 2020 for Community Transportation Needs Assessment awards, each for $50,000. We awarded $1.15 million to 24 needs assessment projects, spanning a large diversity of locations and communities throughout the state. The first application window for clean mobility projects opened a few months later in October of 2020. Despite being in the midst of pandemic, program was oversubscribed and we could award 20 projects, each award initially for $1 million. In 2022 and 2023, we could secure up to $800,000 additional fund for each project to help all of our Window 1 and Window 2 mobility project awardees in rising labor cost, vehicles, insurance, and overall increasing cost of capitals and operation cost due to both inflationary aspect in the economy and, of course, supply chain issues. The second application window for needs assessment vouchers opened in late 2022, followed by a two-phase application process for mobility project awards in spring and summer of 23. As a result, 24 new transportation needs assessment voucher agreements were executed between CalSTART and awardees, as well as 17 new mobility projects. Clean Mobility Equity Alliance Network is another important piece that provides support for communities throughout California by creating an environment for sharing lessons learned. CMEA is a peer-to-peer learning network where project implementers and communities can leverage technical expertise, share successes and challenges in mobility project implementation, and foster statewide connection to advance clean mobility across the state. CMEA includes several work groups and trainings, each focused on specific topic, such as implementation issues with different type of mobility services, transportation equity, and financial sustainability, and also the annual Clean Mobility Forum event. Technical assistant is another significant part of CMO. As I mentioned earlier, the administrator team has provided support technical assistant for all applicants from the time they were preparing their application to execute their voucher agreements and amendments, and now project implementation and reporting support. Next slide. And now a quick status of awarded projects. All 24 needs assessment from Window 1 are completed. Some of the final reports are posted on CMO website, cleanmobilityoptions.org. The link is provided on the slide. We were also very happy to see that some of our needs assessment teams from Window 1 were able to receive a grant for mobility projects in Window 2. Of the 12 new needs assessment projects awarded in Window 2, I believe 4 assessments are completed as of November. We're looking forward to celebrating our Window 2 needs assessment team's achievements in the CTNA closeout event on January 21st. My colleague is going to put a Zoom registration link into the chat for anyone who is interested in joining this event on January 21st to learn about our needs assessment findings and the transportation strategies that they came up with for their communities. Out of 20 MPV or Mobility Project Voucher awarded in Window 1, 16 projects as of November have launched services and are in full operation. The remaining 4 projects are in planning and construction phase with anticipated launch in the coming months. And also one of our Window 2 mobility projects has already launched their services. Next slide. And here's the map of our current 37 CMO mobility projects around the state, from the northern regions, Central Valley, all the way to southern regions of the state. For more detailed information about each of these projects, like how much is the grant, what services they are operating, or who their partner teams are, you can visit CMO website, cleanmobilityoptions.org. and look at under awardees tab. There you can also see interesting project story videos that highlight the impact of CMO funding on communities. I would also like to highlight while we are looking at these maps that our primary goal in CMO was to extend funding to the most underserved and hard to reach communities across the state, ensuring equitable access to resources and opportunities. Through tailored strategies and partnerships, targeted outreach, technical assistance provided by our administrative team, focusing on hard-to-reach urban neighborhoods, rural communities, and tribal regions, CMO aims to bridge gaps in access to clean mobility and empowering communities that had previously been overlooked. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Sean to open it up for any initial comments and questions about things that has been covered so far.
Thanks, Ava. I'll just remind everyone, if you have a comment to share or a question, please raise your hand. For those of you calling by phone, dial #2. And then on Zoom, you can click the react button on the bottom bar. It has a little heart for the raise hand option. And once you are called upon, please remember to state your name and affiliation before asking a question or making a comment. And if you prefer not to speak, you may email questions to Clean Transportation's incentives@arb.ca.gov, which will drop in the chat. Let me do that real quick. And this inbox is being monitored in real time. So if we see any questions or comments come through, we'll be sure to read those live and respond. And I'll cycle through those raised hands and email questions. And so with that, let's see if we have any hands raised. All right. Seeing none, we'll give it a few moments here. Okay.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, we will have more opportunities for comments and questions later on too. And you always can email us if any feedback or comments too. All right, let's go to next slide. Okay, now let's talk about our recommendation to change the funding term for Mobility Project Voucher awardees. The current expectation from MPV awardee is that projects have up to 15 months from the kickoff meeting to complete planning and construction phase of the project, and all the expenses, including capital costs, planning, administrative costs during this time are reimbursable using voucher funds. We also require 4 years of service operation after project launch their services. But voucher funds are only allowed for the first 3 years of operation cost. That means the year 4 of operation must be funded with outside resources. No operation cost is reimbursable during year 4, and only administrative activities can be paid by voucher awards, like payment submission, any cost around data collection and reporting with travel expenses, etc. This limitation was initially thought to be a strategy to encourage awardees to seek outside funding to sustain their service in year 4 and beyond. However, we have learned that it's very challenging to get projects to a point where they are financially sustainable and require less public funding and incentives. Next slide. So what we would like to recommend today is to remove this limitation and allow mobility project awardees to be reimbursed for all eligible costs during year 4 of service operation. That means MPV awardees can consider budgeting operational cost for the full 4 years of operation. This change is specifically important for those Window 1 awarded projects that are now near or in year 3 of operation. These projects launch services soon after voucher execution in 2021 or 22. Since we have recently offered an additional $300,000 to all of our mobility project awardees, these particular projects now will have sufficient time to use this fund for operational cost. The next slide will give you an opportunity to share your feedback on this suggestion through a simple poll question. After the poll, we will open for any verbal comments or questions. And I highly encourage everyone, especially our project implementers, to feel free to share their thoughts about any anticipated challenges or benefits of this proposed flexibility. And also let us know, if you want, what operational needs might emerge in year 4 that this adjustment could help address. Okay, so now we can go to the next slide, Robert. Perfect. I'm going to launch the poll now. Please choose which option do you agree with. Option 1, no change. That means we continue to continue with current requirement that does not allow awardees to use voucher funds for year 4 of operation, or option 2, to provide flexibility so they can budget operational costs during their voucher agreement without any limitation. So I'm going to just give a few seconds before I end the poll. Perfect. We are getting a lot of responses. All right. I'm going to end the poll right now, and here we can see the result, which is not surprising. All of you would like to have more flexibility in managing your grant and project timeline. So I'm going to stop sharing 100%. Yes. Okay, perfect. Now we are going to, just a reminder, you need to click that close X button on top right of your poll in order to close that box, the poll box. Now we are going to open it up again for any additional verbal comments or questions. Next slide. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Ava. Yeah, if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand. For those of you calling by phone, press #2. For the Zoom, look for the bottom bar. It has a little heart for the raised hand option. And once you're called on, please state your name and affiliation. And I'll just remind everyone we have our clean transportation incentive email if you prefer not to speak, and we'll look for those too. All right, and I see we have a raised hand. Mary Holing, 1 second, let me.
Am I free to speak?
There you go. Yeah. So-
Amazing. So Mary Holing with the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, and I just wanted to chime in and offer my support and perspective on this proposed change to allow for operational costs in year 4. It's really essential for our program that we're running, which is an e-bike library in the Rancho San Pedro area. It's a affordable housing development there, and this additional flexibility will allow us to have more time to develop a sustainability plan, and the operational costs of it are, including insurance and then being able to pay a bike operator. This just gives us so much more flexibility. And so just really wanted to thank CARB and CalSTART for helping advocate this as well, and appreciate that this is a conversation that's happening.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. Next question from William Hall. William.
Yeah. Thank you, CARB, for everything you guys are doing. We really appreciate it out here. We love clean air and clean water. I'm from the Bay Area, and I primarily do drayage trucking. And my comment is in regards to the scope of the projects. And I would ask, for instance, I have a project I'm developing, so land in Stockton, and it's for charging infrastructure. But the limitations on the funding only go to certain aspects of that project, which are very narrowly defined, whereas the total costs of implementing the project are far beyond the current granting capability. So I would ask that perhaps the granting authority could review other items that are required to make the whole system work and consider those in the grant application process.
William, thank you for your comment. We do understand that this funding is really, really limited, the voucher. We started with $1 million for each project, and now we bumped it to 1.8. But still, I know that it's not enough to do this mobility services. I just want to note that we can pay for charging stations as long as it's related to the mobility service that you're operating. Anything outside of the mobility service, of course, it's not considered to be part of the CMO voucher fund. Again, thanks for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Philip Nitalama.
Hello, all. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So yes, I want to echo those comments. I want to thank CARB for considering changes to the program to improve the program during the program. That's really helpful, especially for our city, the city of Riverside. We are on the verge of implementing our project. And so I want to thank CARB for all the support that you've provided throughout. That's much better than other programs that I've worked on. So I'm not going to name any names, but you guys have been very helpful. So thank you for that. My comment was based on the poll that is just provided with 100% of the participants agreeing with option 2. How does this look like moving forward? We have an additional 300,000 plus up funding available, and I believe the deadline for that submittal is January 6th or January 9. But given the recent 100% support to change the program guidelines, is that effective immediately, or is there needs to be an update to the implementation manual? And if so, is there an opportunity to extend the deadline? past January 6th given this change, or are we sticking with that date and the implementation manual will be updated, ASAP? Those are kind of my questions moving forward in regards to the recent poll support. So that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip. Great questions. Yes, so the next step is that we are going to update the program implementation manual. My plan is do it ASAP. So it's almost ready to go already. So after this work group and after we get approval from this, you guys, yes, in a few weeks, we will post the updated program implementation manual on the website and CMO. And that January 6th deadline will certainly, we are flexible on extending that. So you need to work with the program administrator team and extend your deadline so you will have more time to work on your revising your budget to include additional funding. And with the result of today's work group, you are able to budget freely without any limitation for the full 4 years of operational cost with the additional fund that you're getting. I hope that answered your questions. And thank you again for your kind comment.
It did. Thank you.
All right, we have our next question from LaDonna Williams. LaDonna, your line is open.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is LaDonna Williams, and our organization is All Positives Possible in the San Francisco Bay Area, Greater Bay Area. And I want to ask CARB, since they launched on December 3rd, this week is going by so fast, on December 3rd, the press release for the e-bike voucher system being opened up, which ironically coincided with a meeting we had with the executive director and several executive officers on the e-bike. I believe it was Mary that spoke on the e-bike program, and hopefully they're having better success. We were part of the pilot launch program. And what we discovered is that the administrator of that program, Ed Clancy, targeted Black organizations and specifically those who were in leadership in the Black organizations. He personally and professionally targeted our areas and gave a charge not to support our areas. Now, to CARB's credit, CARB has been attempting to address this issue. However, they've been ignoring the real implications and the effects that this has had on us by launching this program instead of removing this racist administrator. So if you didn't know, you know. Department of Justice is looking at this, and we have also filed civil rights complaints. So while the funding is great, which folks definitely need, and that would be extra support, although it seems like enough is never enough, we get that. But how can you say you're reaching the most vulnerable? And by the way, we are serving below poverty populations, majority Black areas, very low income. How is this program really going to be supportive of that when the very leader administrator of this project for all of California, a whistleblower has come forth and given evidence of the racism against Black folks in this process? So how, CARB, are you seeing this is going to be fair and inclusive and reaching the most vulnerable when in fact you have not removed this administrator and you're moving forward with him in place?
Hi, LaDonna. Thanks for the comment. This is Lisa McCumber. I'm the branch chief over the Equitable Mobility Incentives Program here at CARB. So today's work group is really focused on our Clean Mobility Options Program, which is community-led projects that really aim to further mobility kind of beyond personal ownership. So today we're not really focused on the electric bike incentive project. And we do plan, as you know, to continue our conversations with you and with others around the concerns about the e-bike program. But that is a separate topic that we won't be diving into today.
Okay, so what you're saying is this work group here, my understanding is clean mobility covers various aspects, and clearly it is part of it because I believe Mary out of LA mentioned that they're part of the e-bike. So if I'm not mistaken, clean mobility covers various forms of mobility from trucking to e-bikes to whatever. And so Lisa, and you know I know who you are. But I think that's a valid question considering folks on here are implementing and doing various programs around mobility. I think it's very valid.
So again, I don't disagree with you, except for the fact that this particular project we're discussing today, yes, e-bike is a component of it, but it's like e-bike sharing. So today's program, the Clean Mobility Options program that we're discussing, is really focused on community projects, not personal vehicle ownership projects. The administrator of the program that we're discussing today is CalStart, not Pedal Ahead. So the topic of mobility, you're absolutely correct. It does cover a very large swath of different types of transportation options. But again, today's work group is really focused just on one particular project, which is the Clean Mobility Options project.
No, and I get that. My point being, and I think you might be missing it, is how will you ensure through this process so that you don't duplicate what has happened to us in the program with this administrator we're speaking about? So as you move forward, I understand they're different projects, but you want to ensure that you don't repeat the same racist mistakes that you have repeated with us to where our communities are being further harmed. As Ava eloquently lined out what your targets are and to ensure that you reach the most vulnerable, as well as others that deserve to be involved in that, you want to focus within this project those issues that I'm raising so that this disease called racism doesn't infiltrate into what you guys are doing here as well. Because what affects one affects us all.
Right, absolutely got you there. So this project, what we're trying to do with this project, and what we've been doing and implementing it for the last few years is this project has a very broad group of community stakeholders and partners. And again, each of the projects are very much community led. We're not trying to guide what the communities need. We work with the community organizations directly to identify what will help them, what really helps the residents in those communities. And so the structure of this is quite different. And my hope is that our structure of this project very much does help us tackle those issues around racism that do exist within the transportation space, and help us avoid running into problems. And so, yeah, I think beyond that, I don't have any real further comment, but the structure of this program is really different. And I do hope that we are helping to remove barriers across the transportation spectrum here, in working really closely with our partners.
Right. And since they are community driven and community led, which is a credit to CARB to have that vision that they need to take the expertise of the communities that are involved in people taking that lead process. However, again, it starts with community and part of it is knowledge. So if these folks are on here not knowing what's really going on, they possibly could repeat the same mistakes. And so again, what affects one affects all, and it is not separate. Racism is racism, and especially when Black folks are the target. So that needs to be on the radar, regardless of whatever program that you guys run or do. and it really ain't no explaining away or covering over. It's called addressing this ugly disease full head. So I'll end it there.
Great. Thank you for the comment, LaDonna. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, LaDonna, and thank you, Lisa. I just want to add a little quick note that we do have an equity consultant specifically on this team to make sure that we're doing everything right as much as possible. Our equity consultant, Emergent Lab, they are working very closely with the administrator team to make sure that we are staying on the vision and on the intent of this program, including racism issue and being more focused on those people that are most in needs.
What did you say the name of the equity folks are?
Emergent Labs is
Oh,
our
okay.
equity consultant. Brittany Brown, I believe she's here on
Oh
the
yeah, I see her
call.
on the screen here.
Yes, Brittany is our lead for equity within the administrator team. So she's guiding us, CARB including, through the equity process to make sure that we are on track. So,
Well,
and
I hope, Ms. Brown, you're having success with that, because we certainly haven't. And if you weren't aware of what's going on, please let's connect so that you can be updated on what's been happening. Because as I see, you're Black, and so am I. I don't have my camera on, but it's definitely an important issue that CARB needs to address head on.
Yeah, I didn't know if I could come off mute, but I just will say quickly, LaDonna, thank you for your comment. And as Ava mentioned, we are supporting with making sure that the equity and the equitable outcomes are addressed within the program. And so thank you for bringing this to our attention and lifting that aspect up. And feel free to reach out to me or my colleague Catherine Stubbs directly, and we'll follow up post this call. Thank you.
great. Sean, do we have any more raised hands?
Not seen any raised hands. Check the Clean Transportation Incentives email box real quick. And not seen any emails either.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We can go to next slide to wrap up. Thank you all so much for listening and your participation. Before we conclude today's work group, I just wanted to share a few additional details. Please reach out either to me, my email address is on that slide, or CMO Program Administrator if you have any questions, suggestions for topics discussed today, or any other issues and concerns that you think we should think about for CMO to improve our program to support better our project awardees. My email address, again, ava.yaghoobrad@arb.ca.gov and info@cleanmobilityoptions.org. We will into the chat. Thank you, John. We aim to post the recording of today's work group in about 2 weeks, and we will also post the updated program implementation manual, as I mentioned before, in a few weeks on the CMO website. And program administrator team will be in touch with all of our awardees and give them updates on the process, an extended timeline for those who need to still work on their plus up budget and voucher amendment. Please make sure you're subscribed to CARB's Clean and Sustainable Mobility Option listserv. By subscribing, you will receive a notice when we hold public work groups and, we post the materials. That link is also will be shared with you. You can select subscription type, and I think the subscription topics, about 4 topics down, is clean transportation incentives. Clean and sustainable mobility option is the first option under this topic. And we know you have very busy schedules, so we really appreciate again your attending and sharing your feedback with us today. We have 7 minutes left. If there is any more last call for any verbal comment, feedback, question, we'll be happy to hear them. If not, thank you and have a great day.